course they did.
One of the things that they would train is
But
they
then
would
they
have to
did like all this great
truck
like
water, and the coach would give
graphic
them a
art
folding
around
chair.
it.
Murals?
It's so cool.
Murals, or
Yeah,
the,
murals that you can walk in. But I'm saying it was like a scary alley before, and now it's like this welcoming. They put
What's
little
funny about that
pictures
is my
in
son
and-
has no interest in
cool.
sports
Yeah, so
except
it's
water
really-
polo.
Oh, really? It's a tough
Well,
one.
yeah, he's only 8, and it was like little kids water polo camp, but they were working on like the shredding water and stuff. And I was like, oh,
You didn't see my dialogue with
okay,
Mallory. I
go for
said,
it, man.
are people really going to show for this? Well, no, that's not the reason. This was going to be a half-hour meeting, max. We should, unless somebody has some major.
No, today was
Well, sure,
Bill.
that's.
Yeah, Bill, there's 4 of us. Cynthia, Tim, me, and what's your buddy's name? Carl. Yeah. That was it. The other Carl.
Yeah, we were gonna go and then Daryl's kids. We can take a day of, and I was sore, we hiked a bunch of stairs on Sunday and then.
Hey, Madam Chair, let's go.
No, that's a good call. But it was I think Carl was like, oh man, we're all people.
Yeah.
Carl was he like always wears the headband. He lives right there. Oh, does he? Oh, that's
He was there Monday, but
Sure. We're ready.
All right.
You want me over there?
This way we can all see him from where we're sitting, you know? It's easy.
All right. I am calling to order the July 11, 2023 Planning Commission meeting. I need approval of minutes for the June 13th, 2023 meeting.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. I need approval of the minutes for the June 27, 2023 study session.
So moved.
Support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right. Communications from the audience for items not listed as a public hearing on the agenda? Nope. New business. Master plan refresh. Recommendation to city council to distribute the plan. Is that you, Christopher? Mr. Corey?
So moved.
Yes.
So moved, yes.
I'll try to just set the table a little bit for us, if you don't mind.
Okay.
So obviously, Chris is here to kind of walk us through what you're looking at, what you're being asked to do. You are simply being asked to forward this to City Council so we can distribute the plan, so we can start to get the public input. So hopefully, what you've seen already is the combination of all of the different meetings that we've had and putting all of that together. So still gives us some opportunity to fix some tweaks in there, but I guess more than anything, I guess I wanted to report that I was really pleased that we are really on time and on budget with this. So with the help of Chris and his crew, all of the things that you were really promised through that RFP process are included in this draft that has been put together already. And I know I sort of bullet pointed a few things there, and the one item I wanted to maybe highlight again is the neighborhood blueprint is also, because that wasn't part of the original RFP. So in addition to all the things that you were promised, we included that document as well. So again, really pleased with where we're at, and hopefully we can send this on to council so we can get to the adoption process. So I guess I
Thanks,
tee
Steve.
that up for you.
Well, good evening, planning commissioners. As you all know, I'm working on this master plan refresh, including diving into some of the specific topics with you guys at some special meetings. And we are now at the point where we are ready to present this draft for distribution, which of course requires a recommendation from this body and approval by council for the document to go out for its 63-day comment period, which will take us into the fall before we get to the public hearing. I have tonight some slides set up. I don't have the clicker, so I'm just going to have to signal Steve. hitting some of the major aspects of the master plan refresh, right? And we're calling it a refresh because it's not really a full update. The key aspects of the plan are still intact, but we just took a new look at everything from the 2023 perspective rather than the 2017 perspective of the original plan. One of the aspects of that, of course, is that we had a new decennial census in 2020. The key takeaways from that new census data, there's not like vast changes in the community, but there are some. One is population's more or less unchanged. We got to actually want to make a note about that loss of about 400 people. We're checking on that actually because there are two 2020 population numbers for you guys. One is the head count and one is the ACS survey data. And I want to check on exactly whether we have the head count or not. Either way, there isn't a substantial change. You're basically flat from population perspective. And we'll talk in a minute about why we have a housing issue despite that, right? We have fewer children in the community, down by about 1,000. That's not surprising. The decline in birth rates started during the Great Recession 10, 15 years ago. And now we are seeing that kind of catch up to us, right? There's kind of a baby bust in those years. It's come back a little bit, but it's not where birth rates are not where they were prior to 2008 and don't appear to be showing any signs of improving anytime soon. That said, Holland is far away from the worst in that regard. You still have young families throughout town, and you're not seeing the declines that some other communities are. And that's partially related to the fact that you are a college town and that Hope grads tend to want to stay here, and you do have actually seen an increase in that college age population since 2010. And of course, we're seeing more seniors, and that's the baby boom generation getting older. It's a large generation, and they're aging into retirement, and that's again true everywhere. Adjusting for inflation, your median income is basically been flat, which is interesting. That was interesting to us to see that data because there's some anecdotal idea out there that there's a lot of people with money moving into the city, and that probably is true. But when worked out on a median basis, it's functionally flat adjusted for inflation. But your poverty rate is down a little bit, so maybe that income spectrum is stretching or something, but because we are seeing fewer people at the bottom of it by a small amount. Measures of diversity are kind of interesting too. The white alone population is down, but so is the Asian population. You did see a substantial increase in African American population in the community, but you are still a 78% white community. Also, yeah, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry, what did I?
You said that we decreased.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, no, you're right. I'm sorry about that. Yes, white population's up, despite an increase in African American population. Now, I want to make very clear about the term Hispanic here, and some of you are probably familiar with this. Hispanic is an ethnicity, not a race. So it's not a separate category from white, black, Asian. It's an overlay over the top because you are one of those things and then also Hispanic, right? And that's not an explanation for that increasing white population, but it is, so it's kind of a measure on its own because you can be white and Hispanic.
So in other words,
yeah.
white means white and Hispanic.
White could mean white and not Hispanic, or white and Hispanic. So if you're looking at, it's because Hispanic is an ethnicity, not a race. You can be black and Hispanic. You can be Asian and Hispanic. And that's the way the census defines these terms. So it's not. So we don't look at it, even though sometimes we think of society that way. That's not how the census looks at it. Interestingly, about the Hispanic population, it is down from 2010. But having looked at this data for other communities in the region, it's not down regionally. So what you're probably seeing is just a shift in where those folks live, city versus township, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
Next slide, Steve.
Chris,
yeah.
is it the 49423 area code, or are you actually doing like
City
the
limits,
city
It's the city
boundaries?
limits. Yeah,
Okay.
that's the city limits.
which is all 49423, but it's not
Yeah.
the entirety of 49423.
Yeah, it's all within, but
Yeah.
the zip code goes beyond. These are, I mean, we didn't want to spend a ton of time in the refresh just on the data stuff, but there's this data actually does produce more questions than answers. Some of those answers we're getting into in the analysis of impediments to fair housing choice, working with Mark. But yeah, some of these, and one of the questions that this type of data always brings up is the city limits from a demographic standpoint are kind of an arbitrary boundary, because people will look for housing in Holland, and they might find it in the city, they might find it in Holland Township, they might find it in Zeeland, they might find it in Park Township. And then suddenly that looks like some sort of trend, and maybe it's really not. Maybe it's just people are moving around the region a little bit. So there's not a lot of conclusions from that census data. We wanted to present it to you, but it's hard to really draw exactly what's going on there. So getting into the actual planning in the document, obviously one of the big pieces of this refresh is the Washington Square sub-area plan that was headed up by Nick Rolinski and Haryi Khan. You can see this drawing is sort of the centerpiece of that plan, looking at opportunities for a little bit of infill in Washington Square. There is some space for that there. Obviously, we're not looking at trying to totally redefine, a gem like the square, but there are some opportunities for adding second stories and other sort of infill like that. The other big piece of this is the way those two alleys would be treated. Those are right now, you have cars pulling out of those across the sidewalk and through. And while the plan does not fully recommend closing them, because there are some public safety and circulation reasons to have them open, it does recommend temporary or seasonal closures to open up those areas to outdoor dining, and to really create a good pedestrianized feel there, which you already have, but without those cars coming across. That plus a few tweaks at the edge of the square that potentially would allow out a little more parking, and the empty lot at 18th and Washington being designated as residential, which has been a discussion back and forth going back to the Udo process and beyond. That this does show that fairly clearly as residential. Any questions on this?
Nope.
Okay, next slide. A couple of drawings. These are by Nick and Haryi. I can't draw nearly this well, but that shows this would be from 19th Street looking north into the square. As you can see, there's a new building there, or an extension of the existing buildings to add a setback third story, which could be housing. And the purpose of this design is to A, create that additional space, B, give a focal point building, but C, not change a whole lot at the actual street and sidewalk level, which would be retained largely as is. This is, this building's a vision, right? But this is a possibility for those buildings in terms of their location, structure, et cetera. So, next slide. This is looking at the alley, and just shows how the outdoor dining could be located during a temporary closure of the alley exit, and then creating that, which we know a number of businesses on the square specifically asked for the opportunity to put out more outdoor dining. There's several of them are struggling with the amount of sidewalk space they have, and this is the solution proposed by the plan. This zooms out a little bit to the broader neighborhood. Partially because when we did the outreach for Washington Square, we did get a lot of input from the surrounding blocks. One of the big things we heard is that the Van Raalte corridor, especially where it intersects 16th and 17th, pedestrian friendliness is kind of a question there. And
schools there.
Yes, and with so many walking destinations in the area, there hopefully could be some opportunities to do some traffic calming, do some improved pedestrian infrastructure. The plan talks about safe routes to school, which is a big lift, but is available, and is an area that would qualify because of the nearby schools, and that would of course benefit the square as well, because that's another walking destination. So, any questions about that? Another new section to the plan that wasn't in the 2017 section is a historic preservation chapter. And the historic preservation chapter is it's not prescriptive in that this area will be a historic district and this area. It's getting at a framework for preserving our history in Holland. And the reason I included this slide is because this shows the kind of hierarchy of actions that can be taken with regard to historic preservation. So the current historic district, where historic district commission approval is required for a number of things, is appropriate for that environment. Adding that in other parts of the city may work, it may not, because it adds quite a bit of oversight, expense, yes, to property owners. So there are that sort of below that can still offer some level of recognition or protection. And that's kind of what this is getting at. And the master plan gives ideas, but then directs the city to look into more detail into some of these ideas.
Well, and this section wouldn't just be for housing either. You're talking about
Yes,
landmarks
absolutely.
and sites and stuff like that.
So religious institutions, or neighborhood business districts, even parks, right, might fall under this. Even sites that aren't buildings but are places where something happened, as opportunities for recognition in that way as well. The map on the next slide shows some of those opportunities as well as the existing historic preservation areas, and this will be included in the plan as a guide going forward. Next. Housing, obviously this is at the tip of everyone's tongue, and as I said, despite the lack of population growth, what we're seeing is declining household sizes, which has been a trend for a long time at this point, but is now starting to catch up with the housing market. The anecdote that someone said to me that I think it kind of resonates is if a family of 5 has 3 kids move out of the house and 2 of those kids end up living in condos in downtown Holland, that's a loss of 1 person and a gain of 2 housing units, right? So that's why the population and housing figures don't start to not add up, right?
That's interesting.
And but so what are we seeing in housing? And this is not news. To you guys. Increased prices. This map is an update of a map that was in the 2017 plan, and basically, red areas are the areas with the fewest availability of apartments, because this is a rental analysis, that are affordable to the median income, right? So, I was actually a little bit disappointed in some of the availability of data here because we've got a few sort of donut hole gaps, but I think this still tells the story. There are large swaths of the region where it is hard to find somewhere to live affordably. Again, not news probably, but we've quantified it and put it in geography here.
Lynn, can you talk in your microphone? Right,
Yeah,
we're recording this, right? That's
So
okay.
the
That's okay. I know, it does, for real, yeah.
Yeah, so what it says there is units that cost less than $800 per month, but you said something about
Yeah, so
median
the
income.
$800 a month is a rounding of 30% of the net income of the median income, and then we said, let's just make it a nice round number, but that's where that came from. 30% of your net income is where when people are considered to be burdened by the cost of their housing, right? So if you take your income, you take taxes out of it, and then 30% of that goes to housing, it's at 30% is still considered, okay, you can afford that, but that's a lot, right? And above 30%, now you're absolutely burdened, right? You're talking about taxes plus housing taking close to 50% or more of your income, right? So and then this is at $800 because that's a nice even number, but it is basically that 30% level.
And that's probably where I was questioning it, because that seems relative, considering what the median income is, which is pretty high. It seems like 800 is low.
Potentially, I can look back into the numbers, but when this analysis was run in 2017, we ran it at $700, so it's increased to 800.
No, Lynn, I was just pulling up the Alice report, Ottawa County's Alice report for United Way, and they're saying rent for someone who's Alice, which is asset limited, income constrained, for a single adult, $649, and that's just for rent, not utilities. And then 2 adults, 1 infant, 1 preschooler, $645. But then utilities are another $200 or so, so I'm assuming you maybe lumped all that in, but it kind of jives with what the Alice data is.
Yeah, that's, again, we all that's sort of an input, but then we need to find a nice round number, right? So that's where 800 came from.
Probably geared towards 50% of AMI, perhaps.
Oh, maybe, I don't know. I'm sorry, because I may be misspeaking there, but I can tell you this is a map of rental units that cost less than $800 a month.
Which is not,
And I can look back into the data and make sure that we've got it
yeah.
pegged adequately.
Do you have what the average rental unit cost is in here at all, like in the city?
Yes, it is in the plan. I don't have it right in front of me, but I could find it here.
I'm betting it's way over that, right? Like probably 1,300, something like that. 1,300.
I want to say it's in the 1100s.
Wow.
For a one, for a studio.
That's just the, well, let me look at it. Let me get the actual number here. It is in the plan. It is on page, it's in the housing section in chapter 4. Oh, actually, it is on page 93, but we're actually going to be updating that for, at very least, inflation, because it's a 2020 number, and that's starting to feel old, right? So in 2020 dollars, it was $989. If you simply adjust that number for inflation, it's $1,165. So, and we don't have 2023 census data. We may be able to get that number from another source, but that's where we're at right now.
And Chris, if I may, because I had a question on that same table, that table 4.3 that
Yeah.
you're looking at. The median household income in 2014, just that number doesn't seem like it can be correct when compared with the 2000 number and the 2020 number. I know that we had a great recession in there, but boy, that seems like a big dip.
Yeah, I agree with that. That I noticed that and thought that does seem like a lot, and it probably is the recession, but we could check it. The 2014 numbers are going to be American Community Survey 5-year estimates, which means that a 2014 number is going to have data in it from 2009. So it may be being dragged down by the depth of the recession.
Yeah,
That's
and-
very possible.
And if you compare it, I guess then with the median owner occupied home value, those numbers seem to track the household income, and the median and the home value numbers seem to correlate with one another on all 3 of those columns.
Yeah.
It's just interesting that rent still went up.
Yeah, that's, well, I think there was one of the things that happened in the recession is people being unable to get mortgages and ending up in the rental market,
Mhm.
and then rents increasing. So it's kind of this vicious cycle situation in that era.
Yeah. So maybe that number's correct and just really telling.
It's possible. Now, the other thing we can do, and we've done this on a number of charts, not this one, but we've done it on numbers, we could do it with this one, is replace that 2014 data, which at the time of the 2017 master plan was the most recent data you could get, right? We could replace that with 2010 decennial census, so it's more of an apples to apples to apples, 10-year range decennial head count. We can do that. We did that with a bunch of other charts. No, that's definitely going to get the recession,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So it'll show that dip, so if you'd like us to do that, we can make that
I'm
change.
sorry, Nathan, what are you looking at?
I'm looking at table 4.3 on page 93. And it's the middle column, the 2014 column, that the income and the home value numbers just seemed out of whack compared to the ones on either side of them.
Yeah. There was a big drop in median income in
Big
2014.
drop in median income.
Per the ACS data from that year. Now, what exactly that's reflecting.
But you were saying it's actually referring to possibly 2009.
So it's the American Community Survey, when the census does it, they send out forms to 1/32 of the population. And then they get back what they get back, and then they extrapolate from there, right? And in order to get bigger sample sizes, they'll start adding years together. So it'll be the 2014 5-year estimates are it's added together, all the surveys they got back from 09, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14.
I see.
So that, and then that's the number they got. So, again, we can look at the 2010 head count, which is gonna be probably more accurate, but to 2010. And so you're definitely getting the recession there. I will
That's
say
tough.
that the trend that you're noticing is actually even more dramatic if you adjust it for inflation and put them all in 2023 dollars.
Yeah,
Yeah.
as long as the data's right and we're able to compare apples to apples, it doesn't matter to me whether it's the 2014 or the 2010 data. Because the 2010 data is gonna also include 8 and 9, obviously, which is probably gonna pull that number down even more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll, whatever you want us to do with this, we can. Again,
I was just curious, I just wanted to make sure it was accurate. And if the number's accurate for 2014, that's great. It looked like an anomaly to me, but now that you're explaining it, that it would include that Great Recession data in there as well, I go, oh yeah, that does make more sense.
Lynn, did you still have a question?
So getting back to as long as you're finished with that.
Yeah.
are you
Oh, yeah.
done with that? So getting back to this one that's on the screen, it seems like there needs to be, is this why I'm sorry, I feel like I'm 2 steps behind everybody because I was looking at something else. But it seems like this is fine information. Now I've lost my train of thought. So the 800 is coming from the 2021 ACS estimates. That's what I'm reading here?
That is the data, yes, that's a good point. That's a good point that I hadn't thought about, actually. So potentially some of those rents are being pulled from 2017.
Yeah, and maybe that's why it just seems low to me, because I think actual rents are significantly higher than that, but, and certainly since, yes, I'm sure that they're higher than 800 at this point. But I don't know where you get that more up-to-date information. So I don't know if you just pull that out and say, make sure that it's clear that this data is from 2017.
Make sure it's obvious.
And there is in the bottom right corner there, that it's a 5-year estimate.
Yes.
Yeah. But that might be a good spot for something in the margin that talks about the American Community Survey and the 5-year estimate thing.
Yeah.
We can get rental data that's more recent, but not broken down by that geography that easily, right? With a lot of time put into the Zillow Observed Rental Index, we could probably figure this map out, but I don't think we'd stay on budget then. So, just to be blunt.
Well, I think it's good information. I think just and maybe we don't look into the weeds enough. It's regardless of what that number is, 800 or 900 or whatever, it's still giving us a picture of where the affordability is and isn't.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think,
Definitely.
I think as you go out into the outskirts of the community, that clearly you're gonna have a dearth of affordable rentals, and then that is also true downtown, right? It's kind of interesting to me where you might be able to find affordability, like Zealand, but that is actually kind of surprising, so. Next. So what are we doing about it, right? The plan names a number of things that have been done and recommends further actions. So obviously you guys with the UDO did quite a few things that are aimed at reducing the zoning barriers to do housing development, right? To provision of housing units. Sometimes those things are, the market doesn't always do what we wanted it to, but they're out there, right? So we tried to right size the TNR density to the, Brooke's smiling because that was a long, arduous process. Yes. We tried to get it so that the density based on lot sizes, it actually corresponds to the sizes of lots in the district, as well as where existing duplexes, triplexes, and quadplexes are. That was easier said than done, as many of you remember, right? But we did our best, and it is better than it was, right? Now, I think that what we've seen anecdotally, unfortunately, or not unfortunately from a housing market perspective, is that the market is actually pushing those homes in the direction of being single family because they are worth so much, right? So, and I say unfortunately, but that's not unfortunate for people who reside in those neighborhoods. It's just unfortunate for people looking for housing. But anyway, we made that zoning change. That's recognized in the master plan refresh. The next thing is eliminating the commercial districts. There are, as you guys know, this isn't news to you, but there are no pure commercial districts in the ordinance. They are all mixed-use districts. They all allow housing in some form. So that is hopefully an opportunity to provide more housing, and we're hopefully starting to see that. We talked about non-industrial outlots, which give the opportunity to provide housing in the industrial district, and one of the recommendations is to take a deeper dive into that and see whether the program, as currently designed, is going to allow that provision of that workforce housing. We also have increased height limits near downtown, allowing density not on 8th Street, but on surrounding blocks to get an extra couple floors, for developers. It's those housing units. And then the easing of the ADU regulations, which I believe there was further easing of the ADU after the original adoption of UDO. Though again, the market has been slow to react and create more ADUs. Post this master plan process, the plan and Steve are recommending further look at some of these UDO topics, and the plan has a list. We went over that at the most recent special meeting. Other things that could be done, potentially creating a land bank, which was not an option available to the city, but now is, correct, Mark? Or will be, maybe? Could be. Yeah, working through the legislature in Lansing, right? To potentially allow a city-level land bank for cities other than Detroit, which was the only one that was allowed. That may open up that opportunity here, which is another tool to assemble infill sites and turn them around. Another thing would be a housing trust fund to help with gap financing. That's the difference between how much a building costs to construct and how much it can support in debt, right? So if those two numbers aren't adding up, plus profit for a developer, you're not going to see something built. Where are the opportunities to fill those gaps? I think the other thing is finding those target redevelopment and infill sites. There are still some in the community, quite a few of them. Where are they? What are they zoned? Why aren't they built? Why isn't anyone building housing on them yet, right? And try to figure out if we can get those moving in the right direction. And then a more detailed housing plan, which would incorporate some of the elements I've already talked about, as well as opportunities to encourage the continued construction of new housing and the renovation of older buildings into housing. Any questions on that? Next thing that's refreshed is the future land use map. This is obviously a topic of a couple of different special meetings in various ways, and we've had considerable input from staff on it as well. What you have in front of you there is a comparison of the 2017 future land use to the current recommended future land use in this plan. I'm not going to try to go through every little detail of the map, though I can answer questions, but I do want to note some changes to the overall, to the districts themselves. And the biggest one is the use of mixed-use village, which existed in the previous plan but has been expanded into additional areas to recognize the opportunities created by the CMU zoning district to do mixed use in areas that were previously commercial only. And the other one is the business development mixed use district, again, something that existed in a similar form in the old plan, but has now been linked more directly to the RMU zoning district to show that the idea behind that. Those Lincoln and Ottawa corridors in particular, where you have that organic business development that was done 100 years ago, and the opportunity to repurpose, adaptively reuse many of those buildings for 21st century businesses, for housing, for community uses, et cetera. Any questions on the map? Cool. Next, I did want to mention that there are a couple of edits to be made to the map. We have a new map that's going to go, actually, it's ready now, so it will go in for council next week. But particularly with to do with North Downtown and the BPW facilities and what is realistically going to become an extension of downtown and what is more realistically going to be BPW infrastructure. As well as, you know, the extension of College Avenue and that kind of thing. So that the map is tweaked and you have the notes there. This note, I don't remember why it's in there. This is one you added, right, Steve?
I think this is the stuff that we had talked about at the last special meeting where these were just a couple of the corrections that staff wanted to include with that map. So this one is just really snapping the zoning and the master plan lines one and the same. So just sort of a couple cleanups, just like the previous map. So in the memo that you have, we're asking you to forward this to City Council with these changes. And I guess I just wanted you to see these changes so that you weren't doing that just complete blindly, if you will.
And Steve, these were in the changes that you provided to us
To
last
you,
week.
yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
we do.
just wanted you guys
yeah.
to see it.
Like I said, the map's now ready, it's just not in this draft. So we're ready to go if you make the recommendation with those edits, so we can get it in council packets. The zoning plan, we went through this, I won't go through this line by line, went through it at the previous special meeting. This, I hope, is a really useful tool for you guys in linking Udo to the master plan. So particularly when you're asked about a rezoning, the guidance here is hopefully clear. Basically, this takes each of the future land use categories. It lists the appropriate zone districts within that category that can be used to implement that category so that a rezoning within that category would be appropriate. It's not one-to-one, right? Sometimes there's one district, sometimes there's 4 or 5. But that's what the third column is, which is explaining when each of those districts is appropriate and when it might be a useful tool to use. The next 3 slides, I think, all cover this. I'm necessarily planning on that. Okay, planning on that. Okay. But if there are questions, then let me know. Another aspect of this refresh was partially funded by MEDC as part of the Redevelopment Ready Communities program. So what you're seeing is kind of a half-finished table that explains where the RRC best practices for master plans appear in this plan. The reason you got those highlighting on there is because every time we make an edit, it changes the page numbers. So we will be getting, for the distribution draft, we will have those page numbers locked and loaded, but until we're for sure locked, they're highlighted in yellow. Next.
That's it.
Okay. So with that, I can take any further questions. I do have the full draft in front of me on the laptop. Any revisions you guys would like to make before a vote? Yeah, Lynn.
I wonder if, on page 15, the Who We Were chapter, I wonder if you could add a line before European settlement beginning, just something that recognizes that there was a population of people here before the Europeans settled.
Sure.
I know it's kind of
Good idea.
complicated, but I don't know, something that recognizes the native peoples that were here before.
No, Lynn, I think you're right. I know I've been hearing about other cities actually having plaques up recognizing areas of their cities where Native people had lived.
Yeah.
So I think that would be good.
We could probably add, related to that, we could add something similar in the historic preservation section on those lines as well.
Mhm.
Great. Any other comments from anybody?
Yeah, I have one on page 84 in the call-out box on embracing the winter season. It says the Parks and Recreation master plan includes a number of possibilities to increase winter programming support, including a holiday ice rink, a regulation-sized ice rink, and cross-country ski trails. Since we've gone quite far down the line with the ice skating park downtown, I think it would probably make sense to include language that references that plan.
Yeah, good idea.
Because it's going to happen.
Council hasn't voted on it yet, but there's at least one yes vote sitting at this table. Yeah. I would never dare speak for you.
You gotta say
Yes,
you're
we
on
never
thin
know that.
ice. It was a perfect time for a pun right there.
Oh, thank
That's
you,
the Chad
Luis.
joke of the day. Thank you.
That's why
Thank
you came here today,
There it is.
right there. Yep.
It's a slippery
Yeah,
slope.
I do appreciate those notes, because since this is a refresh, there are parts of this document that are the same as they were in 2017, and that kind of catch is appreciated.
Typos that were mentioned have already been taken care of, like on page 41.
Yes, yeah, that was made, I watched that edit be made this afternoon. The one in the council packets will not say map, it'll just say map. Thank you for that, Dave.
Anyone else?
And you mentioned it with the page numbering, but I saw with the highlights on some of those page numbers.
Yeah.
There was other areas where there are highlights, and I saw, as an attorney, I completely understand and recognize this page intentionally left blank and the reasons behind that. There was one I caught, and I don't remember, temporarily left blank, and I don't know whether that was intentional that page is gonna have something in it. I wish I could find it. It's probably in the first
No,
third.
I know where that is.
And I don't know whether that was a typo, that page is gonna intentionally be left blank, or it's gonna be filled with
57.
something later.
Yeah, I actually think that blank page is going to be removed.
Okay, that's
So,
fine.
it
I just wanted
It was,
to-
I think what happened here, and I apologize for this, is that there was a map that wasn't ready yet. The blank page was held for the map. The map got inserted, the blank page didn't get deleted. So we'll get rid of that blank
Not,
page.
not a problem. And so anywhere where we're seeing those highlights, that's gonna be taken care of as council.
Yes.
Okay.
So we'll get those page numbers in the RRC
Okay.
section. Those will be locked for, at least for that draft, it'll be correct.
Perfect.
So yeah, we'll make those two changes.
This is maybe a question for staff, but I think I missed this in all the times that I've gone through this, the goals and then the updates, the action steps and the updates, the public engagement. And I would love to have all of those in like one place instead of having to scroll through every section. So I don't know how hard that
In
would be.
addition to having it
It's-
in
I
the
mean, just
section
for
where it's
my own
appropriate?
personal, like, that is such great information.
I mean, a list of, or chart of all of the things
Well, the
of public
charts are
engagement
here.
we've done?
Yeah,
No,
but-
but I mean, one combined,
Well, and then there's an action step, so progress since 2017, public engagement and an action step, like those pages.
Call that in
if
one
there
big
could be,
packet?
Like one little document with just those
Sure.
sections would be great.
Sure, yeah, we can definitely work on that, and you'll see, in some rendition of this, our big spreadsheet will be updated, and we'll be able to include a bunch of these things too, so, yeah, we'll definitely be able to do something like that, and we'll be updating that
Yeah, it's
larger
just a-
spreadsheet that we've been using too.
It's just a great, this is just a great, everything is just all in
Yeah.
one place and really
Agreed.
terrific information.
So conceivably, we could pull those pages out and then have them as an appendix by themselves, or we could put them at the beginning or end of that chapter. That would add a lot of pages.
Yeah,
It would be
I
the same
don't-
as
I
other
don't-
pages, but
I don't wanna make it harder for
are-
everybody, but it just is such great information.
Lynn, are you thinking about it being part of the master plan, or are you thinking about being a
No.
tool that we have the ability to be able to
Yes,
use?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just a tool. It doesn't need to be part of the plan.
Right.
Just something that we could.
Maybe we can talk about that, Chris, maybe there's something we can do to break it out and make it a link or something that would be easily searchable, or maybe we can.
yeah, that might be an
we can
option.
work on that.
Or say like jump to next. Probably not for next week's council meeting,
Yeah.
but for the
Yeah.
final document, we could probably figure something out like that.
Yeah, you guys will get another crack at this, so this will go out pending, your recommendation and city council's decision. Then it would go out for the public notice, and then you'll get another crack at that in the October timeframe.
Sounds good.
And just for all the thousands of people listening, there's a 63-day comment period for the public to be
correct.
able get information to us and make suggestions and let us know what they think about this process before it's actually voted on.
That's right, and we'll be sending it out to a broad range of different agencies and groups, so it's not, you know, we're not just relying on people during
Good.
that 63 time period, all that is happening.
Great, thank you.
I got mine in the mail already, so thank you very much. And distribute it to our team too, so it's already been happening.
Great.
So really, we're looking for a motion to city council to recommend that city council send this out for the distribution.
I move we approve the recommendation as written by staff,
Support.
With the edits that people.
with the edits that we had today, yes.
Yes. And Dave, you said support. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? No? All right.
Thank you,
Thanks,
folks.
Chris.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Communications and petitions, scheduling of public hearings, none. Communications from commission members. Our next meeting, this is actually a question. We are having a study session July 25? Or no?
No. Is that on there?
Nope, I'm just
No.
making sure.
No.
We had a couple extra ones in the last couple months, so I just was
No,
asking.
we're done with those.
All right.
But we do have a study session and meeting scheduled for our regular
August 8th.
August meeting.
Okay. I will not be there, so
No, I won't.
Nate's up on deck. And communications from staff?
All I have for you is the admin review updates for the second half of the year. You want to go through those?
They're good projects, so thank you for sharing them, but I don't need to go through them. But
No.
that's really good.
Anyone else?
Nope, we're good.
All right. We're good. Are you good, Steve? Are you super excited about it? Did you really want to share?
I guess it's up to you. I kind of do it for you guys so you kind of know what's happening out there, but,
Well, let's do it during the study session in August.
okay.
I thought it was very helpful. I read it. It was
I
good
know.
stuff.
It is, but-
I liked it.
All right. Motion for adjournment.
So move.
Support.
All those in favor say goodbye.
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 It was good the way he showed it and